Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, it is a fan-made Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. On today's show, we are going over 3 7-round mock drafts, but with a twist. They were sent in by you, the listener. So I'm excited to go over those. We're going to look at all 7 picks of each mock draft. I'm going to give you my favorite pick and my least favorite pick of each mock, and a ton of variety in all these. We'll cover a ton of different prospects. Can't wait to dive into all of these fan-made Mock Draft Monday here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it!
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Titans fans, it is a fan-made Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. I can't wait to get into these mock drafts that you guys sent to me. Before we do, want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also, I got to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. If this is your first ever listen to the Locked On Titans podcast, make sure you subscribe on whatever platform that you do stream. You're going to find the Locked On Titans podcast everywhere and always free. That includes the Locked On Titans YouTube channel. Subscribe over there. Smash that notification bell so you know when the shows go live. Smash that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube right now. You can follow me on Twitter at TicTacTitans. Follow the show on Facebook at Locked On Titans Pod. I am going to be putting out daily, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content, not only during the season, but all year long. So make sure that you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast, especially with it being draft season, and that's why it is a fan-made Mock Draft Monday. We are going to start with our first mock draft, and it comes from my guy, Titans Turtle. I'm going to throw his mock draft up here on the board for you guys to check out. Did it on the PFF Mock Draft Simulator. It's a solid tool out there, so shout out to those guys. But with the first pick in this draft for the Titans, number 26, Titans Turtle goes Treylon Burks, the wide receiver out of Arkansas. Love that pick. I'm starting to doubt that Burks will even be available for the Titans at 26, but he just fits perfectly with what the Titans want to do. Big, physical, yards after the catch guy, good versatility as well. Would love to have Treylon Burks, and I would bet the Titans would love that as well. So good start there. Isaiah Likely at tight end, number 90 out of Coastal Carolina. Needs to improve a little bit with his blocking, but I think he can be a facsimile or a new version of Anthony Firkser, an updated Anthony Firkser to start. He gives the Titans something that they don't currently have at tight end. Both Austin Hooper and Jeff Swaim are not yards after the catch threats. They're more, reliable hands, big-bodied guys. Isaiah Likely gives you incredible yards after the catch ability, sharp breaks in and out of cuts. So really good stuff. That is my favorite pick of this mock draft, Isaiah Likely. Then he goes Zach Tom at pick 131, the offensive lineman out of Wake Forest. And I say offensive lineman because a lot of these draft guides and draft sites have Zach Tom as a tackle. But what I've seen and what I've read from Zach Tom, I think that he's more of a fit at center. He played center his first year starting at Wake Forest. He doesn't have great length. He's really mobile and athletic and instinctive, but he doesn't have a lot of power, doesn't have a strong anchor. So I kind of wonder whether or not he would be able to survive out at tackle. He's 6'4" too, so right on the borderline of being big enough. So I think a career on the interior of the offensive line, especially at center, could make sense for Zach Tom. But at 143, Titans Turtle goes with Alec Lindstrom from Boston College, who I like very much in the mid rounds for the Titans as a developmental center. They could sit behind Ben Jones and get him ready to go because, Ben Jones is in the end phase of his career. So I don't like the pick of Tom. That's my least favorite because I don't really think he solves a tackle need. So in my mind, taking Tom and Lindstrom back to back is hitting the same position because I see Tom as more of an interior offensive lineman. But I really like the pick of Velus Jones. He's an older guy, doesn't have a really polished route tree, but he can be a kick returner. He can be a depth wide receiver. He is a guy who has great yards after the catch ability, so he gives the Titans kind of a gadget option. Cam Batson improvement, you could even say there, with more ability, so I like that. Brad Hawkins, the safety out of Michigan, kind of a Brady Breeze type of pick there, but it's a dart throw in the 6th round anyways. He's a guy who knows where to be, knows what to do. He's reliable, he's durable, but he doesn't have elite traits, explosiveness, playmaking ability. It's kind of just a depth guy that can play on special teams. Like I said, very similar to like a Brady Breeze. And then Tyler Goodson, love this pick at 219. Tyler Goodson is small guy, 5'9", but he's a strong runner, can run in between the tackles, has good scheme familiarity coming from Iowa. He ran a bunch of different type of runs. Not only that, but he's good as a pass catcher, so I think that he can be what the Titans wanted in Darrynton Evans with a lot cheaper price. So I do like the mock draft there from Titans Turtle. Treylon Burks at wide receiver, Isaiah Likely at tight end, Zach Tom at offensive tackle, which I think he's more of an interior offensive lineman, Alec Lindstrom at interior offensive line, Velus Jones at wide receiver, Brad Hawkins at safety, Tyler Goodson at running back. I think you hit a lot of positions of need. I like getting Burks and Likely with the top 2 picks, just adding playmakers all over the offense with great yards after the catch ability. And Likely can give the Titans tight end room, something that it currently doesn't have right now. Swaim, I would say, is kind of just a Dollar General version of Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper doesn't give you a lot of yards after the catch ability, just a reliable guy who's going to get open, catch the ball, but, not give you a lot of, playmaking afterwards. Likely, that's exactly what he can do, and he can have time to work on his blocking, on his technique, on his physicality, and improve there so that he can ultimately be an every down tight end. I think that would be perfect. Hit offensive line depth in the middle, add some, guys at positions of need, some back-end depth, and the Goodson pick just really is the cherry on top for me. So really like this mock draft from Titans Turtle. Ready to get into some more. We got 2 more mock drafts to get into with different combinations of players and many more prospects to talk about. So very excited to do that. Before we get into that, though, do want to tell you a little more about the title sponsor of today's show, betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Go Cincinnati Reds. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends and all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Titans fans, let's continue this fan-made mock draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We just did Titans Turtles mock draft, who gave some good playmakers to the Titans and some offensive depth on the offensive line. Offensive. It was an offensive draft. But now we're going to move into our second mock draft here, and it comes from Watanegi. I'm guessing Watanegi. So you guys and your crazy Twitter names. But anyways, you know who you are. First pick here, I'm going to throw his mock draft up on the screen for you guys watching on YouTube. First pick at 26 was Kenyon Green, the interior offensive lineman out of Texas A&M. Road grader, physical, nasty, would fit perfectly with the Tennessee Titans. So I really like that pick. If the Titans end up with Green, I will be very, very happy. I like what you did here with pick number 90, Alec Pierce. Pierce, a wide receiver out of Cincinnati. Tall guy, about 6'2", 6'3". He is a vertical downfield threat, obviously with that size and that length. He's able to jump over guys and win at the catch point. He's got really good focus. So I like him as a deep threat for the Titans. Now, he's a willing blocker, but obviously he's slender, so he's not going to blow anybody off the ball or come in there. I think the willingness, though, allows him to fit into the Titans offense. Now, he doesn't really give you a lot of yards after the catch ability, but quite frankly, neither did Julio Jones. at the time. Neither does Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. So the Titans aren't solely focused on yards after the catch ability. And I think Alec Pierce could be a good fit as a deep threat, as a vertical guy, as a tall option to go along with A.J. Brown's yards over the catch ability. He's not quite the slot guy, but you move Robert Woods into the slot, have him be your possession slot guy. You got Pierce on the outside as your big, tall, rangy. I know he's not the same quality of player, but think about like a T. Higgins from the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Pierce could be a discount option of what Higgins brings to the Bengals on the outside of A.J. Brown or the Jamar Chase in this example. But moving forward, I do got to say Kenyon Green was my favorite pick. My least favorite pick is 131 Dameon Pierce, the running back out of Florida. He's a solid running back, really tough guy to bring down, but not incredibly productive at Florida, was never a number one option for them. He's not explosive. He's not a big play threat either. So I like the depth there, and I would be okay with taking Pierce, but not at 131. He's most likely not going to be a starter in the NFL. He's going to be a backup guy. And with that in mind, I know the Titans need a backup guy, but I just don't like the value here for Pierce, taken far too high. The Titans need to attack positions that they have greater needs at with 131. 143, I like the pick of Kobe Bryant, though. 6 foot, of course, I like somebody named Kobe Bryant, but 6'1", cornerback out of Cincy. He's physical and aggressive at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have incredible explosiveness. He doesn't have ideal length, but he's a man-centric corner who can fit into the Titans system. And the connection with Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, if the Titans do get Kobe Bryant, it's because they have good intel on him. Now, I was questionable on this pick because the Titans don't need another young cornerback. They simply don't. But at the end of the day, it's about value, and there's a lot of value at corner. You can never have too many good corners, so I can't be mad at the pick. Zach Tom. Again, I kind of covered Zach Tom with the last mock draft, 169, the tackle or center, as I would say, out of Wake Forest. I see him as an interior offensive lineman. So you already got Kenyon Green there. Now, if you're telling me you're okay with double dipping there, that's fine, but I would rather get somebody who has more potential at tackle. But that late in the draft, maybe it's not there. And Tom does give you versatility having played tackle and center. So who knows? Maybe it works out. But at that value for Zach Tom, 169, which is 2 picks later than Tom was selected for the Titans in the first mock draft, I'm okay with that value, even if you go Kenyon Green in the first round. Then to our 4, you got Charlie Kolar. So Iowa State tight end, tall. Kolar is tall. He's a big guy. He's going to be a good red zone option for a team. I see him as a rotational tight end, but for me, he's got the Jeff Swaim, Austin Hooper vibe to his game. He's not a guy with great yards after the catch ability. He's not a guy who's going to be explosive in the passing game. He's just going to be a reliable option who will block for you. He's going to get open and be smart and sit down and catch the ball. But again, no explosiveness there. So at that pick at 204, I love it because he could be an heir apparent to Jeff Swaim, and you can get rid of Jeff Swaim and quit paying Jeff Swaim $2.75 million, $3 million every year. So he could take his place going forward, but he doesn't really solve the tight end issue because I don't think he has a lot of upside to be a tight end one. He'll always be that rotational guy. But at 204, that's good. That's good. It's just not going to, satisfy the tight end need that the Titans have, like a guy like Isaiah Likely would. The last pick, again, both these mock drafts, I loved the last pick of the draft. It was Tyler Goodson. Now we have Amari Barno. I love Barno out of Virginia Tech, the edge rusher. He's got just great athletic traits. He's explosive, burst, twitchy. He's raw, though. That's the problem. Not a lot of technique there. Limited experience at the position. So he's going to need a lot of work. But the last pick in the draft, 219 for the Titans. I mean, that is a great value. You work on him. You let Ryan Crow go to work and try to get him up to speed technique-wise. He has all the natural ability and natural athleticism and natural twitch that you want from an edge rusher. So you take that incredibly wild talent and you try to mold it with technique. And I think that Barno has a chance to be a late-round draft pick that really, really comes on in the NFL. So I like that mock draft a lot. Just to recap here, Kenyon Green, Alec Pierce, Dameon Pierce, which was my least favorite pick, with Kenyon Green being my favorite pick, Kobe Bryant, Zach Tom, Charlie Kohler, Amari Barno. I like that mock draft. I would be happy with that haul if that's what the Titans came out with. But that's only our second of 3 mock drafts. We have another one to get into here. Very excited to dive into that with a different first-round pick. So these are all good mock drafts for the Titans, very realistic, and they all showcase kind of different options and different routes that the Titans could go with their selection. So great job by all you guys sending this in. I guess I'll take this opportunity to thank you guys again for sending in these mock drafts. Last week, I kind of made a call to Titans faithful and said, please send me in some good mock drafts that are realistic, that I think make sense. And you guys delivered tenfold. So these are really good ones. Also want to say, my apologies if I didn't pick your mock draft. I got sent 30, 40 different mock drafts. I don't have time to cover all of them extensively. So if yours didn't get picked, don't think that I don't like you. I just picked the ones that I thought would lead to the best discussion on the show, and I still appreciate everybody sending in those mock drafts. And it doesn't have to stop. You keep sending the mock drafts to me. We'll discuss them, take a look at them. You know, that's one of the best things to do during draft season, is kind of forecast what could happen and what the different roads and routes could look like for the Titans. So thank you all very much. I mean it very sincerely. But with that in mind, we are going to move forward. We are going to look at our last mock draft of the day. Before we get into that, I do want to tell you guys about the best tasting protein bars in the galaxy from our friends over at Built Bar. You get the best of both worlds with this protein bar. You get, of course, the health factor. They're low sugar, low calorie, high protein, high fiber, but they also taste absolutely delicious. I mean, there are some Built Bars that I like better than some candy bars. That's a fact. That's a truth. The white chocolate cheesecake, the peanut butter brownie, the salted caramel. I mean, they have the puff bars, which have like marshmallowy consistency in the middle. The crunch bars are dynamite, man. I am a crunchy guy. I like crunch. Just absolutely delicious. I mean it. And a lot of listeners reach out and say how much they like it. The Built Bar hosts really love Built Bar. It's probably the product that I advertise that I've gotten the most positive feedback about. So make sure that you go to built.com right now. Use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Titans fans, let's cap off this fan-made mock draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast with our third and final mock draft. Before we get into it, I want to thank you guys again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. As for your second listen, it is NFL draft season. It's a perfect time to check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. It's hosted by Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker. They're covering the draft from 2 different angles here. They're giving you all the front office perspective and insight, and they're looking at the players, doing mock drafts, big boards, player profiles, all of that. It's a great resource to get you ready for the draft, which is just a few weeks away. It's free and available on all platforms, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. But getting into our third and final mock draft here, it comes from Douglas Marple. Number 26, I'm going to throw it up on the board right now. Number 26, Desmond Ridder, who you guys know is my QB2, but who I think is the best fit for the Titans. Got shades of Tannehill, got shades of Mariota, and he's an incredible leader, tough guy. It's a perfect pick. Got the connection to Cincinnati like I talked about before with Vrabel and Luke Fickell. It just makes all the sense in the world. Will Ridder be there? Will the Titans have better options? I don't know, but I like the Ridder pick on its face here to start there. Then at pick 90, Cole Strange, the interior offensive lineman out of Chattanooga. I think he's a perfect fit for the Titans zone scheme. Athletic guy, did good with his testing. I don't know if he'll even be there at pick 90, but if he is, the Titans need to scoop him up because, again, he's a perfect fit. We talked about Alec Pierce. I like Pierce's value a lot more here at 131, but he's been impressing as of late. Cole Strange at number 90 is my favorite pick of this mock draft. That's just incredible value for a guy who I think could start day one. He won't have to, but he would be a perfect heir apparent for Ben Jones at center and could push to start at left guard this year. My least favorite pick here, 143, Damon Clark, the linebacker out of LSU. Number one, I just don't think that the Titans have a need at linebacker to justify taking the guy at 143. That's too high to go linebacker, in my opinion. Also, Clark isn't expected to play in 2022. He just had spinal surgery, and that's something that I think is a risk long term. So I don't like the value of the position at that pick, and considering the player who's a good player, run and chase guy from LSU, but with that medical history, it's an injury concern and it's a red flag for me. He'd be off my board. So I wouldn't select Clark there. That's my least favorite pick. But Charlie Kolar, we already talked about him. He would be a good heir apparent for Jeff Swaim and give the Titans good rotational depth in 2022. Then the last two picks are solid picks here. You got Marquise Bell from Florida A&M. He's an incredible athlete. Just needs work with being disciplined in the run game, staying patient in the pass game, honoring his responsibility, learning how to read the quarterback and read the route combination. He just needs some, how do I put it? He's got good athletic ability. He's long, he's fast, he's strong, but he needs to develop the mental aspects of the game. And then finally, you got Tyler Algier out of BYU. I saw a comparison of him to James Conner from the Arizona Cardinals. I think that makes a ton of sense. He's a stocky guy, about 5'11", runs real tough, very productive in college, shows some ability to catch the ball as well, which could lead to him potentially being a 3-down back. As I said, you always find running backs late in the draft that can blossom and be solid players for you. I didn't like the Dameon Pierce value, but I love the value of Algier here. I think he makes a ton of sense for the Titans coming out of BYU. That's a good pick, good value. Can't hate on that. So I like that mock draft as well. Great job there by Douglas Marple. But that's 3 different mock drafts in 3 different routes, with wide receiver at the first pick, offensive line at the first pick, quarterback at the first pick. And I think all of them produced a really good haul for the Titans that, good players at positions of need that need depth or need talent. I mean, I'm really impressed by these mock drafts. You guys did a heck of a job. So a really fun edition of Mock Draft Monday here going forward. We only got a couple of Mock Draft Mondays left for us before the draft arrives. Gonna have next week's Mock Draft Monday. Gonna have the week of the drafts Mock Draft Monday. Hopefully we start getting some more intel. I think next week what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a Mock Draft Monday focused on trade. So I'm gonna trade up, I'm gonna trade back, and look at how things shook out and decide what I think was my favorite route to take there and see if I can kind of make some of these trades work. So excited for that one. But for the rest of this week, we are going to be talking NFL draft, baby. It's time. The 2022 Locked On Titans NFL draft preview is here. We talked quarterback on Thursday last week. Incredibly extensive conversation on the top options, and then some backup late round guys. We're going to continue that model as we go position by position. We're going to continue going through offense, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. We're going to get into the defense as well. Very excited to roll through all these positions. That's probably all we're going to be talking about over the next 2 weeks, is different positions in the draft. So I'm very excited to dive into all that and any other rumors that pop up surrounding the Titans in the draft over the next few weeks. One of my favorite times of the year, probably my favorite aspect of the NFL outside of the games themselves. So excited to talk prospects and break down the draft with you guys. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.